Erikson's methods of investigation. Erikson insisted that personality is a product of history, culture, and biology, and his diverse methods of investigation reflect this belief. He employed anthropological, historical, sociological, and clinical methods to learn about children, adolescents, mature adults, and elderly people. He studied middle-class Americans, European children, people of the Sioux and Ewok nations of North America, and even sail Orson a submarine. He wrote biographical portraits of Adolf Hitler, Maxim Gorky, Martin Luther, and Mohandas K. Gandhi, among others. In this section, we present two approaches Erikson used to explain and describe human personality: anthropological studies and psychohistory. Anthropological studies. In 1937, Erikson made a field trip to the Pine Ridge Inhan Reservation in South Dakota to investigate the causes of apathy among Sioux children. Erikson reported on early Sioux training in terms of his newly evolving theories of psychosexual and psychosocial development. He found that apathy was an expression of an extreme dependency the Sioux had developed as a result of their reliance on various federal government programs. At one time, they had been courageous buffalo hunters, but by 1937, the Sioux had lost their group identity as hunters and were trying half-heartedly to scrape out a living as farmers. Child-rearing practices, which in the past had trained young boys to be hunters and young girls to be helpers and mothers of future hunters, were no longer appropriate for an agrarian society. As a consequence, the Sioux children of 1937 had great difficulty achieving a sense of ego identity, especially after they reached adolescence. 2 years later, Erikson made a similar field trip to Northern California to study people of the Ewok Nation, who lived mostly on salmon fishing. Although the Sioux and Yurok had vastly divergent cultures, each tribe had a tradition of training its youth in the virtues of its society. Ewok people were trained to catch fish, and therefore they possessed no strong national feeling and had little taste for war. Obtaining and retaining provisions and possessions were highly valued among people of the Yurok nation. Erikson was able to show that early childhood training was consistent with this strong cultural value and that history and society helped shape personality. Psychohistory. The discipline called psychohistory is a controversial field that combines psychoanalytic concepts with historical methods. Freud originated psychohistory with an investigation of Leonardo da Vinci and later collaborated with American Ambassador William Bullitt to write a book-length psychological study of American President Woodrow Wilson. Although Erikson deplored this latter work, he took up the methods of psychohistory and refined them, especially in his study of Martin Luther and Mahatma Gandhi. Both Luther and Gandhi had an important impact on history because each was an exceptional person with the right personal conflict living during a historical period that needed to resolve collectively what could not be resolved individually. E. Hall, 1983. Erikson defined psychohistory as the study of individual and collective life with the combined methods of psychoanalysis and history. He used psychohistory to demonstrate his fundamental beliefs that each person is a product of his or her historical time and that those historical times are influenced by exceptional leaders experiencing a personal identity conflict. As an author of psychohistory, Erikson believed that he should be emotionally involved in his subject. For example, he developed a strong emotional attachment to Gandhi, which he attributed to his own lifelong search for the father he had never seen. In Gandhi's Truth, Erikson revealed strong positive feelings for Gandhi as he attempted to answer the question of how healthy individuals such as Gandhi work through conflict and crisis when other people are debilitated by lesser strife. In searching for an answer, Erikson examined Gandhi's entire life cycle but concentrated on one particular crisis, which climaxed when a middle-aged Gandhi first used self-imposed fasting as a political weapon. As a child, Gandhi was close to his mother but experienced conflict with his father. Rather than viewing this situation as an Oedipal conflict, Erikson saw it as Gandhi's opportunity to work out conflict with authority figures, an opportunity Gandhi was to have many times during his life. Gandhi was born October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, India. As a young man, he studied law in London and was inconspicuous in manner and appearance. Then, Dressed like a proper British subject, he returned to India to practice law. After 2 years of unsuccessful practice, he went to South Africa, which, like India, was a British colony. He intended to remain for a year, but his first serious identity crisis kept him there for more than 20 years. A week after a judge excluded him from a courtroom, Gandhi was thrown off a train when he refused to give up his seat to a white man. These two experiences with racial prejudice changed Gandhi's life. By the time he resolved this identity crisis, his appearance had changed dramatically. No longer attired in silk hat and black coat, he dressed in the cotton loincloth, and according to Erikson, Mahatma Gandhi developed basic strengths shawl that were to be from his several identity crises. Familiar to millions of people throughout the world. During those years in South Africa, he evolved the technique of passive resistance known as Satyagraha and used it to solve his conflicts with authorities. Satyagraha is a Sanskrit term meaning a tenacious, stubborn method of gathering the truth. After returning to India, Gandhi experienced another identity crisis when, in 1918, at age 49, he became the central figure in a workers' strike against the mill owners at Ahmedabad. Erikson referred to the events surrounding the strike as the event and devoted the core of Gandhi's truth to this crisis. Although this strike was only a minor event in the history of India and received only scant attention in Gandhi's autobiography, Erikson saw it as having a great impact on Gandhi's identity as a practitioner of militant nonviolence. The mill workers had pledged to strike if their demands for a 35% pay increase were not met. But the owners, who had agreed among themselves to offer no more than a 20% increase, locked out the workers and tried to break their solidarity by offering the 20% increase to those who would come back to work. Gandhi, the workers' spokesperson, agonized over this impasse. Then, somewhat impetuously, he pledged to eat no more food until the workers' demands were met. This, the first of his 17 fasts to the death, was not undertaken as a threat to the mill owners but to demonstrate to the workers that a pledge must be kept. In fact, Gandhi feared that the mill owners might surrender out of sympathy for him rather than from recognition of the workers' desperate plight. Indeed, on the third day, the workers and owners reached a compromise that allowed both to save face. The workers would work 1 day for a 35% increase, 1 day for a 20% increase, and then for whatever amount an arbitrator decided. The next day Gandhi ended his hunger strike, but his passive resistance had helped shape his identity and had given him a new tool for peaceful political and social change. Unlike neurotic individuals whose identity crises result in core pathologies, Gandhi had developed strength from this and other crises. Erikson described the difference between conflicts in great people, such as Gandhi, and psychologically disturbed people. This, then, is the difference between a case history and a life history. Patients, great or small, are increasingly debilitated by their inner conflicts. But in historical actuality, inner conflict only adds an indispensable momentum to all superhuman effort.